Hi, in today's video I'm going to be taking a look at nixpkg, which is a package manager for the NixOS operating system. nixpkg's package manager also works on other Linux distributions and Mac OS X as well. So what is NixOS? If I come across here and have a look at the README, basically it's a functional package manager, and what it does is it stores stuff in a completely different way than every other Linux distribution, which will normally install stuff in, user, lib, all these different directories. Basically, what NixOS does is it installs all the dependencies for an application in a single directory, which has a unique name, unique cryptographic name. And then what it does is basically it creates symbolic links to that software. And when you upgrade, it just creates a new symbolic link. So you can have multiple versions of different applications, and all the dependencies are contained in this directory, so they don't interfere with other applications. Because a lot of the time you try to install something and, one program needs this, another program needs that, and you kind of get into this dependency hell. What it also supports is rollbacks and upgrades, so that if you install an application and it's got a bug or something like that, you can roll back to the previous version of the application, which is absolutely brilliant. So what I'm going to do is basically go through how you can set this up on your computer, on your Linux distribution, and some tricks I've come across that aren't actually mentioned in the manual. So basically what we've got is NixOS, the operating system, and then we've got the if I come across here, it's got installed Nix first steps, and if I come across here, we have the Nix manual, the nixpkg manual, and the NixOS manual. And what I'm going to be doing is basically going through the setup of Nix and how you can have a text file that you can specify which applications you want to install, and run a simple command and it will install all your applications. So what this means is that you can have a text file that you can keep in your Dotfiles, under Git, and basically you just tell it to install stuff from there. And if you've got another computer, you just pull down that .file, you'll have a list of applications to install, you run a command, and it will install everything. It's absolutely brilliant. So what I'm going to do is actually take you through the steps. So again, this is the manuals. This is the sort of general intro on what NixOS is and how it works. Now this is the nixpkg manual, and in here there's a section called declarative tongue-tied, package management. And basically what it means is that you can declare a list of things in a text file that you want to install, and then simply install them by running a single command. Now, in this section here, what it's basically got is some information about how to get things working with the actual operating system, because it's kind of installed sort of separately. You kind of got to expose stuff to the operating system, like for launchers like XDG, you need the desktop files, the icons, the man pages, things like that. So this is where I got some of the information from, but there's actually a couple of tweaks you need to make to get some things to work. So what I'm going to do is crack on and show you this is my config for nixpkgs. I'm just going to quickly show you this and then actually get through to the install. So I'll go through this later, but basically what we've got here is a text file with a list of applications we want to install, and basically I can then just run a single command and it will install just those applications with the nixpkg package manager. So there's a couple of steps we need to get through, and there's two different ways of actually installing NixOS. There's what's called a single user install and a multi-user install. And we're going to be covering the single user install because I've tried both of them, and the issue with the multi-user install is basically it's so that you can, if you have multiple users on your machine, they can all install different packages. We're just running a single user machine here, and the issue with the multi-user setup is that the files will actually be owned by root. You'll be able to edit them and stuff, run the commands and everything without using root, but it's just annoying that all the files are owned by root. So using a single user install is a lot cleaner. All the files are owned by your user, and it's really easy to actually remove nixpkg completely if you don't like it, and or you want to start fresh. So the first step is, what we need to do is create a nix directory in the root of our operating system. So if I come across here, you'll see I have a nix directory, and you'll see that it's actually owned by root and my username. So the first step is, as root, we need to run sudo mkdir-p, which means create the directory if it doesn't exist, /nix. After we've done that, we need to chown that directory. So what we need to do is run sudo chown your username and then /nix. And as you can see, what that does is that changes the permissions on this directory, and that's important so that because otherwise what happens is the install will sort of set that up to be owned by root. So after we've done those two things, we've created the directory. We then chown it with sudo chown your username /nix. What we need to do is run the script for the single user install. So let me just get some more tea. So there's actually two options listed. There's two ways to install this. As I said, there's the multi-user and there's the single user, and the option at the end is different. If you're running a multi-user, you run --daemon. Because we're running a single user, we run --no daemon. So we run this script in the terminal, and that pulls down the installer, and it's going to prompt us to go through it. Just click yes, 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 that sort of thing. And after we've done that, what it's going to do is it's going to basically say, run the following command after the install, and it will give you, it'll print out a little command in the terminal that you need to run. It will look like this, but it will have your username instead of my one. So after you've done that, what you can do is you can, if I just list packages that are available. If I run this command, nix-env-qa and this takes a second or two to run. What it's going to do is this is going to list all the available software that we can install. So this takes about 5 or 6 seconds to actually generate the list. But so you can see here we've got stuff like 1Password, even though this is, you can get 1Password on Linux. You've actually got alacritty in here, and alacritty is not available. Do it somewhere up here. ABD go down here. Is not available in the Debian or Ubuntu repositories or anything like that. So it's quite difficult to install. They've got Alfred. So some of these are actually Mac applications. But you can see there's basically hundreds and hundreds, I think about 80,000 bits of software you can install. Now, that's how you can list the packages. Now, you can install stuff like this. nix-env-ia, and then nixpkgs.ripgrep. So if I come across here, this is basically where you search for packages you want to install. So if I run ripgrep, okay, and what we've set this up to be the unstable branch. So we come across here and go to unstable, and you see ripgrep. When you click this, what you'll see is 2 tabs here. And by default, it's going to be selected on nixos. What you need to do is select on non-nixos, and it then gives you this command. Running this command will install this application. But the issue is, what we want to do is have this declarative package management where we have a text file and we specify in that text file what we want to install. So we're not actually going to be using this method to actually install stuff. But this is how I originally got started, just installing stuff like this. Then I came across the manual here about the package management section, which is a much better way to do it. So we're not actually going to be doing it this way. So if I come across here, what I'm going to do is come across to this section. Now this is how you fix the XDG data directories. Now the XDG is what's commonly used to launch applications. So you have things like desktop files and icons. So if I come across here, run local share applications, you'll see this is the location that is used by, as standard for your desktop files, which will come up with your launcher. So if I run Chromium, it'll come up in Rofi or your application launcher. But Nix installs stuff in a separate location. So if I run ls-al nix-profile, I need that at the end. What you'll see here is we have a bin directory, we have and we have a share directory. So if I have a look in this share directory, what you'll see is like applications. These are all symlinks. This is what this means. These are all symlinks. We have man pages. So if I run this applications, I need the slash at the end. You'll see here, these are all the desktop files or the applications installed with nixpkgs. Now the issue is that get some more tea. Your launcher isn't going to be looking in those locations, or your shell's not going to be looking in those locations to launch applications. So the way we fix that is by editing our ZSH RC file or your shell config file, if you're using bash. And what we do is we run export, we add export xdg data directories equals, and we put in the full path here to the Nix profile share directory. And again, you just need to replace your username here with, replace my username with your one. And at the end, we have xdg data directory. So what this does is it prepends the path to the Nix xdg directories so that the shell knows about them. So if I come across to my ZSH RC file, come to the bottom, you can see down here I have that section in the file. And basically what that does is it makes programs aware of where those xdg directories are. So that's one thing. We also need to actually fix Rofi, which I'll get into. So I might as well do it while I remember. So what I do is I use a program called sxhkd, and what that is it's a sort of keyboard daemon that runs and basically intercepts keyboard commands and then runs a particular command. So if I want to launch Rofi, I should have this in here, Rofi. But this is how I launch Rofi with Control, Super and P, like this. And if I run like meld, you'll see meld shows up. Meld is a diff viewer. And this is installed using nixpkg. And I'm going to show you the trick to get Rofi working, because it took a bit of a while to figure out. Because we've added the fix to our shell config file. So if we run Rofi from our shell, it's going to pick up the xdg directories for things like meld and everything else I've installed with PKG, nixpkgs. But because rofi is not running in a shell, it doesn't pick it up. So what we do is in this config file for sxhkd, this keyboard daemon, what we do is we set it so that we run control super p, and then what we do is we run xdg data directories equals the path to our Nix profile here. We can use home, share, and then so run one command and then run another command, and then we run rofi. And what that does is basically that fixes the problem with rofi not picking up the desktop files for nixpkg's application, because we don't have this section in here. What happens is you run rofi and you search for like meld or gimp or whatever you've installed, it's not going to show up, which is a pain. So if you're using a desktop launcher and you need to get the desktop files working, this is what you need to do. So what I'm going to do is actually come back, there's actually some more to get that working. What we do now is we create the nixpkg's config file. And this is the config file that we're going to use to actually specify the applications that we want to install. So the location for the config file is ~/.config nixpkgs config.nix. So first of all, what we do is we create the nixpkg's directory. We run mkdir-p, which basically means if the directory doesn't exist, create it. And then we specify the path to the directory we want to create, which is ~/.config nixpkgs. After we've done that, what we want to do is actually create the config file. Let's get some more tea. And we do that by running touch ~/.config nixpkgs config.nix. So that's the two steps you need to do to create the directory in the config file. Don't worry, we're getting there. It just takes a little while to basically set all this up. So create the directory, create the config file. So we've done that. And now what we're going to do is look into this package overrides, which is the declarative package management. Now, in the notes which I've copied from the install file, it sort of gave two options as how you actually run this. And basically the way I run this is the first option here, nix-env-ia nixpkg my packages. And that will all make sense in a second. So what we do first of all is we edit the config.nix file with our text editor of choice. And what we're going to do, I'll just move this down a bit so you can see it all on one page. We're going to add blocks of code like this. Now, basically what this does is it creates a profile, and in that profile it's going to specify the man pages, the path to the man pages, and stuff like that. And we can actually what's called expose that information to our system by sort of creating symbolic links. So we'll be creating symbolic links to particular things that the package got in it, like the man pages, the desktop files, the icons for the desktop files. So that's what this first block sort of sets up. Then we have this my packages sort of variable. Basically what this is going to do is create this my packages sort of variable that's going to be used by nixpkgs. And inside here, inside this section, basically all we do is specify the name of the application we want to install. Again, we can find that by searching the packages. So first of all, we come across to search nixos.org, come to the packages and go to the unstable. and say we want to install say GIMP. We know it's called GIMP, but I'm just showing you what the naming convention is. And again, make sure you've got this tab selected here, and you'll see that the naming convention for packages is nixpkg s dot and then the actual name. So this is actually going to be the name that we want, because a lot of times you'll have packages that will have different names in Debian or Arch. So sometimes if you've got something installed with apt or something, the name may be different from the name on nixos. So come across here and double check, and that's how we figure out what the actual name we want to use is. And so in this file we can now specify all the applications we want to install. So what I've done is I've gone through my system and I've removed all these applications that I installed with apt, and then I've installed them all with nixpkgs. And you'd be amazed at how much cruft that actually gets rid of, especially with things like Python files, Python's applications, which some people are a bit a kind of a meme that people aren't very fond of Python applications, and the reason is that when you install them, typically they'll pull in a load of Python dependencies. So you'll see like 20 or 30 Python files are going to be installed, libraries, and after a few you just get loads and loads of Python things installed on your system. So because all these applications are self-contained in their own directory and don't interfere with each other, what it means is that you have a really clean system, because essentially what you're doing is you've just got your stock like Ubuntu install, and then and then you just use nixpkgs to install all your software. When you do an apt update, you're not going to get many things to update because you've got a really clean system. So that's one of the advantages. And again, the other advantage is now you've got all your config in a text file. What it means is you can shift this text file to another machine, run a simple command in the terminal, and it will install the packages for you. Because you've got two machines, it's easy to keep the Dotfiles synced up. Yeah, that's not a problem. The problem is remembering what software you've got installed on one machine versus the other. Now, of course, you can export, a list of packages, on Ubuntu or FreeBSD or whatever, and that kind of thing. But it's not the same. So again, here's all the stuff I've got installed: ABook, APG, which is a password generator, ARIA2 download manager, command line for Amazon, BAT, CVS kit, Dunce, which is notifications, Emacs. So this version of Emacs you see here, this is installed with nixpkgs. So I'm running 27.2 Emacs, I think. EXIF tool for extracting metadata, FAY for wallpaper, FZF, GDAL, which is for sort of GPS stuff. We've got GIMP, GPS Babel, that's another GPS thing. Graphics, Handbrake, HTML, XML utils, which is for manipulating HTML on command line. Got ImageMagick, JQ for manipulating JSON, links, media info, meld. Got MPD, got MUT, NNN, NCDU, NCMP for my interface to MPD. We've got the Network Manager applet, which is on a separate display. Newsboat, Earth Toolkit for generating, when you log in, sometimes it asks you, two-factor authentication thing. And that OF Toolkit allows you to create two-factor authentication codes. Got Pandoc for converting documents. PlayerCTL for controlling web browsers and video players. RipGrep, Scrot, which is taking screenshots. Shellcheck, SXHKD, and my keyboard daemon. Got Skiv, which is a command line image viewer. TIG, which is a sort of interface to Git to show you commits and stuff. Got tint2, which is the panel, tmux, tree, URL scan, URL view, ytfzf, ytdlp, and I need to mention a fix for ytdlp to get it working with things like NPV. While I remember, get some more tea. Okay, that's the tea done. So you can see we've got all that, and now this is the section I want to cover at the bottom, path to linked. So basically what this does is when you install stuff, it creates everything in its own directory with its own cryptographic hash for the file name, so it doesn't interfere with any other stuff installed. It allows you to do rollbacks, and what we need to do is actually expose particular parts of the things that are installed by nixpkgs to our operating system. So, as I said, when you install a graphical application, you're also going to get the desktop file and the icons, also the man pages, stuff like that. So what we've got here is sort of directories that we want to expose, like share man, doc, info. It has those listed in the manual, but the ones that it doesn't have listed are share applications and share icons. So what we do is we add those there, and also down here, applications and icons. And what that does is, if I switch back to the terminal, Nix profile, so we've got Nix profile. So what you can see here is these directories. We've got bin, etc., and as I said, share, as I showed you before. So if I run bin, you'll see here these are actually all the applications, and basically they're symbolic links to the Nix store. You can see these all got sort of kind of unique names here. And basically what happens is when you install a new package, it just creates a new folder for that new version, and then it updates the symlink. So there's never a time when it can break, because even if you crash halfway through installing something, the applications are still there. It's just, the symlinks. So it just basically works by creating a new folder and updating the symlink to that new version. So you can then just revert to the previous version and it just updates the symlink basically. But this is the bin directory. So that's the bin directory. And as I said, we've got the share directory here with the applications and the icons. So if I just come into icons, you can see here, this is the icons. Oops, I needed the n/h color. Sorry, color. Okay, and you can see here all the actual icons. So this is how we get the icons working and the desktop files, and that's needed so that when we run Rofi, I can now run, say, GIMP, and that's GIMP, and that's quick. Look how quick that launched. So that's GIMP nixpkg version with the icons and the applications directory exposed to the system, so that we have the desktop file and the icons for the application, so that it shows up in our application launcher like Rofi. So again, I can run meld. Okay, meld comes up. So that's basically the secret source that's not mentioned in the manual. If I come across to the actual manual back here, this declarative package management, you'll see here it's got this stuff about linking to share and bin and the documentation. So this is the section basically I sort of started with, and I noticed that the desktop files weren't showing up. So after a bit of faffing about, I figured out that's what the issue is, that basically you add these two here, share applications, share icons, and down here. Once you've done that, you're all good to go. And what will happen is, after adding the, let me just come back up here. The desktop files fixed to our ZSH file to look for the XDG directories for nixpkg stuff, and also the Rofi fix I showed you. Basically, that will allow us to use our desktop launcher to launch nixpkg software, which is great. And so while I think of it, what I want to do is show you the fix for ytdlp, which I've actually covered in a previous video. Now the issue is programs like MPV use YouTube DL in the background, and what they expect to find is a YouTube DL script. Now YouTube DL is kind of been sort of abandoned for the last 6 months, and so there's a fork called ytdlp, and what we can do is we can actually create a symbolic link to ytdlp called YouTube DL. Basically what that does is that tricks MPV player into using YouTube ytdlp in the back end. So what I'm going to do is, I've got ytdlp installed, installed with nixpkg. Now, when you're normally looking for where an application is, you might run where is, let's say like grep, for example. It's going to say user bin grep. So what you think is, okay, I'll run where is ytdlp. Where is ytdlp? So what it does is, running where is ytdlp actually prints out this path here, and this is the Nix store. Then we can see we've got this random string, then user environment bin, and then ytdlp. And think, oh bugger, that's not going to be any good, because every time you update a new version of ytdlp, this string is going to change. So how can we create a symbolic link to that location? Well, the thing is, if you run which ytdlp, it actually prints out this path. So the path is home, your username, nix profile, bin, ytdlp. So this is the actual path of, this is the symbolic link, okay? So I said, what you have is you have a nix profile bin directory where all your stuff shows up. But these are actually, that's actually a symbolic link to this location. So nix profile bin ytdlp. You can see here this little arrow here pointing to this. That's this location. So running where is ytdlp gives you the location of the actual file. Yeah. But running which ytdlp gives you the path to the symlink, which is what we want, because that's not going to change. The symlink is always going to be the same. It's always going to be the name of the application installed, and then it's going to link to this directory with the latest version. Okay, so the way we tackle this is basically we create a symbolic link from home, your username, nix profile, bin, ytdlp, to, we've got a bin directory set up in your home folder. Otherwise, use the full path to like user local bin, bin YouTube DL. So what this does is it creates a symbolic link from YouTube DL to ytdlp in our nix profile bin directory, that then links to the real actual application. So I just wanted to cover that while I remembered. So upgrading packages. So you want to upgrade the actual packages, Basically what you can just do is run nix-env-u. And what you also have is you also have a dry run option. So you can run nix-env-u --dry-run, and that will actually go through and do a dry run before you do anything. So you can install, so that's how you upgrade stuff. And what I'm going to do is actually cover how you upgrade nixos as well. So this is the instructions on how you actually upgrade nixos. So that's basically going to sort of update everything. Now to uninstall stuff, basically you run nix-env-env -e and then the package name. So this is where you need to sometimes find the package name. So if I come back to here, if I think it was like Rofi, was it? You can see here. So sometimes I can't remember which one it was, but sometimes the package name is slightly different. So you'd think you'd uninstall it by running nixpkg.rofi, but what you actually do is you run nix-env-e just rofi, not nixpkg.rofi. That makes sense. So I haven't got rofi installed, but you'd run something like nix-env-e rofi, and that basically uninstalls rofi. So that's that. So the other thing was the actually updating stuff. So if I want to grab this and come across here, this is the command that I run to install stuff from my packages file. So what you can see here is nix-env-i capital A nixpkgs.mypackages, and that my packages refers to this variable. Okay, so basically it's just saying install everything from my packages variable, which is going to be anything in this list. So if I want to install something else, I can just basically search it. I've got what's another, what about dust? Okay, du dust. Okay, yeah, I think that was it. So we've got du dust here, so let's grab that and come across to my .config nixpkg's config file and put that in here. Okay, save that. Come across. Give it a second or two. Du. Let's see if that's. So what the flipping hell was the thing called? Du dust. So don't know why that's. Have a look in the bin. I mean, it has installed it. I just don't know what the flipping thing's called on the command line. Is it called dust? Okay, dust. Yeah, there you go, dust. So that's dust. So that's the dust program, which is a replacement for du. So now say I want to uninstall that. Basically, because we've got a text file, you could run, you know, I said you nix-env du dust. We wouldn't uninstall it like, you know, du dust, because we're managing our stuff with the config file. So I'll just delete that. come back, on the bloody window. I'll just run that command again, placing old packages. Now if I run dust, see, no dust, gone. So that's how easy it is. Come back to the config. We've got a nice, easy to use config. We just specify all the stuff we want to install. We can easily find it by searching here. Again, sometimes these things have different names on different operating systems like Arch or Ubuntu, that sort of thing. But remember, this also works for Mac. So if you're a Mac user, you can use this instead of Homebrew. There'll be a slightly different install instructions you'll have to follow on the main page. But basically, we can come through here, search for the application which we want, put them in this text file. You run a simple command. It only installs stuff from this file. And you know, say if I move something from there and run that command again, it's going to remove the application. So it's a perfect way to manage stuff. So that's the config file, and the way that I do this is I manage all my Dotfiles with Emacs org mode. So I have all my Dotfiles here, everything in one file, and now I have my nixpkgs config in this file as well. So what that means is basically what you can do with org mode is you can do what's called tangling. You can actually write out config files from this document. So if I run a particular keyboard on this section here, what it's going to do is it's going to write out this config into the correct directory. So what I've got here is I tangle it, write it out to my file system, but also I create a copy in the Dotfiles directory, and I can run a single keyboard shortcut and write out all of these files at once. So what that means is I can pull this file down on another computer. I write all the files out at once by basically running Control-C, Control-V-T. That writes out all of the config. I can then switch to the terminal on the new machine, just run nix-env-i nixpkg s.mypackages, and it's going to install all the latest packages in that text file. So that's perfect, because what it means is you're managing your Dotfiles and your applications from a text file. So it makes it super simple to basically replicate the same setup on one computer as another without any faffing about. So that's absolutely perfect. So that's basically how I sort of manage stuff. And let's just have another look at the I'm going to come to never remember the keyboard shortcut I set for this. Hang on. I have a keyboard shortcut that hides hidden directories. And I can never remember what the keyboard shortcut is. Oh, yeah, Control-X, MO. Okay, so what I'm just going to do is show you the directories that Nix actually creates. So what you'll see here is this Nix profile is a symbolic link that points to another directory, and what we've got here is the Nix channels, and basically this is a link to the unstable packages that we're going to be using. The unstable basically means the latest and greatest. So we have the .nix channels file, which basically specifies the channels we're pulling from. I'm not sure what this one is, I haven't looked at that one yet. And then we've got the Nix profile, and what you'll see here is this looks remarkably similar to the sort of layout you'd expect for a sort of regular Linux system. We've got bin, etc., lib, share, and again, were the things that we exposed from nixpkgs to the operating system, and it creates these sort of symbolic links to these things. So we've got here, look, you can see this is the bin directory, and in here, these are just all symbolic links that point to a self-contained folder, a folder with everything, all the dependencies for that application inside it. And then again, what happens is when you install a new version, it just creates a new directory. So if I come across to the terminal here, and I run, I think it's nixenv list generations. You see what we've got here is a list of sort of generations that were sort of installed. You can see here we've got sort of these are basically when I've installed stuff, so you can actually switch back to a previous generation of when you've installed stuff. You can have a sort of like roll back entire to a previous generation of when you've installed stuff. So you've edited the text file, installed a bunch of new stuff. You can go back to the previous time before that. We can roll back individual applications. So you can just sort of go like roll back to the previous version, or because it keeps several different versions of an application, you can just switch back to any previously installed version, and all it does is just updates the symlinks. So what we got here is this nix profile bin directory. These are all just symlinks to those different directories with the applications installed. And again, all the dependencies are installed in that directory. So you're not going to have an issue where you've installed one application and it requires version 3.2 of something, and then you install another application and it requires 3.4. Which is a common thing on Linux, dependency hell. This solves the problem because all the dependencies are self-contained in this directory, so they don't interfere with anything else. And again, basically these symlinks, every time you install a new version, it just updates the symlink to point to the new version. So basically what that means is you can just by updating the symlinks, it can roll back to previous different versions, previous different generations. So these are all the sort of binaries that would normally get installed and clutter up your system. On Linux, what happens is it just shoves everything in user bin. It mixes up the user land with the system. Typically on things like FreeBSD, they separate stuff that's installed with the system, comes in user bin, whereas everything else that's installed by the user goes in user local bin, so they don't kind of all go in one bucket basically. And this basically solves that issue, because it doesn't just stick all this stuff in your user bin directory. You can see here CVS kit will install multiple binaries. So these are all the things that I've these are all the things that have been installed using nixpkgs there in the bin directory. And then again, got the share directory here. The manifest, basically you can see here, this is this is the file that basically telling it how to install everything. And you can see here we've just got my packages. So rather than having a file that's like this manifest file saying listing hundreds of different things we want to install, we got it set up so that basically we've just got this my packages variable that contains a list of all the things we want to install. and it just basically says, yeah, install my packages, and, and does what it's supposed to and just installs everything that's specified in my packages. And then we've got this shared directory here. And again, this is the thing that I covered where when we set up our config file, we actually specified items we want to expose, you know, which are needed, like the application. So these are all the desktop files. Okay, so these are all the XDG desktop files to actually launch the applications. And again, the issue which I covered is these are all stored in Nix profile share applications, which is a location that by default isn't going to be searched by things like Rofi. So that's why we went through those fixes. But these are all the desktop launchers. Okay, and then what we've also got down here is we've got all, you know, the icons. Okay, so those are all the icons for the applications. So you can see this is really clean. So basically all we've got this Nix channel file, this thing here, this Nix dev expression, channels root, haven't got into that. Then we've got the Nix profile, which is just basically the symbolic link. And then if I come across here, we've just basically got everything in one directory. So we've just basically got everything in the Nix directory there. We've got the store and the var. So very clean. We've just got one directory of everything. You can see it's all owned by our user. The other thing I want to cover is actually find the nixpkg, yes, there we go, is actually uninstalling Nix. So say you've gone, you messed something up or done something you shouldn't do and you want to start over again. It's really, really easy just to remove Nix and reinstall it. So if we want to uninstall Nix, basically we've got 4 things we need to actually remove. The Nix directory. What we're doing here is we're running sudo rm -r recursive and then capital I /Nix. And what that's going to do is we're not using rmrf, which is dangerous, and it's very easy if you're with tab completion in the shell to accidentally delete the wrong directory. So the I flag is going to prompt you, do you want to delete this directory, yes or no? And that's why we're running the I flag here for safety. So first of all, we run the sudo rm -r capital I nix /nix, which is at the root directory, and that deletes that directory. And then again, we've just got 3 other things we need to remove in our home directory. So just replace my username with your username here. And again, we don't need sudo for that, so we just run rm-r capital I, the path to the Nix profile, the Nix dev expression, and the Nix channel, and that will remove Nix. So that's all you got to do to remove Nix. So if you mess anything up and you want to restart, just go through those 4 commands, and then basically all you got to do is go through the install again, and you just run sudo make directory p nix. Okay, first step. Second step, to check and chown that directory with your username. So sudo chown your username /nix. Then we run the install script here. That's going to go through everything. After it's done that, basically you just run a command that will look like this in your terminal. Okay, and then what we do is we go through those steps. We made sure that we've got our we've edited our shell config file, and I could change this just to the home variable actually. That should work as well, but I've just got the full path specified there to the Nix profile share directory. So that's what we did for our desktop files. And And then we created the nixpkg directory. So this is the location of the config file. So again, the next step was we created the nixpkgs directory in config. And then in that directory, we created the config.nix file. Okay. Finally, we set up the package override. So we edited that and we created a file. Obviously, this is all the stuff I'm installing. You might not want the same stuff, but we created the config file. And again, you can upgrade just by running nix-env-u. That's going to upgrade. And we've got the dry run option, and we need --dry run. This is how we upgrade nixos. That's one way to remove a package if you weren't using a text file. And again, we got the ytdlp fix. So those are the notes, and as again, you can also do stuff like rollback and stuff. So I'll put all the links onto this. So basically, we got come back to the main site. So nixos, this is the site, and again, the nixpkg package manager works on Linux and Mac, so you can use this on the Mac instead of Homebrew. So if I come across to the get started here, go install Nix. Now you can see here, this is the multi-user install with the -- daemon, and I do not recommend this version unless you really need to have, unless you've got multiple users on your system, because it requires sudo during the install, and it's going to make everything owned by root, all the files. It does add sort of like groups and stuff so that you don't require root to run Nix, but it sort of clutters stuff up more. It's harder. Well, it's not hard. It's not hard to remove, but there's more steps to remove it. So I recommend running the single user install, which is the --no -daemon option. So I don't recommend using this version. Use the --no -daemon option. Now here's the version for Mac OS X. You can also install this on the Windows subsystem for Linux as well. There's Docker stuff, and you can verify that. You can also verify the actual script using PGP if you want. So then we come across to this learn stuff here, and then what we've got here is we've got the Nix manual, nixpkg manual, and the nixos manual. So we don't need the nixos manual because we're not running the nixos operating system. So these are the two that we're interested in, and this is the Nix. This is the first one. This is the Nix manual explaining basically how it works, all the stuff you can do. So multi-user, so you can do upgrade, you can do Nix env rollback. You've got garbage collection, so that you can actually remove, if you've got lots of previous versions of an application, you can remove the ones you're not using. It's basically going to go through and explain a lot of how this works, how you can query what packages are available, and also, while I remember this, you can see here which hello. So that's the other important thing to remember is running where is ytdlp points to the actual application, whereas running which ytdlp points to the symbolic link that points to the actual application. And this is what you're going to want to use if you're scripting stuff, or you need to make symbolic links. So that's how you find out where the symbolic link is. But yeah, whatever it is, it's just going to be in your Nix profile bin, and then the name of the application. So And that's just one thing I wanted to cover there. But this has got loads of stuff, you know, about how you do rollbacks. You can roll back to a previous version, or you can, you know, specify, you know, a particular one, you know, roll back to version 1, 2, 3, 4, that sort of thing. So this is the nixos manual. Then we've got the nixpkgs manual, which is what we're using as the package manager. And again, this is some of the stuff here. But what you've also got is sometimes it will refuse to install stuff because the package will be set as broken, or you're trying to install something for Mac on Linux, so it's not intended to run on that platform. You've also got licenses which can be set to unfree. So sometimes you'll try and install something that would say, no, I'm not having it. It's not a free bit of software. So in your it says here in your configuration.nix. So sometimes you get this is that, you know, it will specify stuff that's for the operating system, rather than, you know, the PKG thing here. So this is how you would do it if you were running nixos. But if you're running nixpkgs, which we are, we would add this section in our config nixpkg config.nix file, allow on free, and that's something I came across with Google Earth. Now the other thing is you may get stuff that's like says you know, it's got a vulnerability or something, and you can allow installing stuff like that as well. Yeah, that's it. Insecure packages, basically will typically list things like Google Earth that are not free as having insecure packages. So that's how basically you can do that, and you can, you know, permit a particular package to be installed if you want. Now this is the section we covered, modifying packages via packages overrides, and this allows us to basically have declarative package management, where we basically have a config file where we can specify applications we want to install, which is just brilliant because it's just a nightmare sort of managing stuff, because you've got so many different things. You've got snaps, you've got flatpaks, you've got Python pips, you've got Emacs, you know, you've got loads of different things, you've got apt, what have you. So this just having everything in one file and just be easily able to set up Nix on an operating system, and then install all these packages, and this is going to install all the latest packages. So what it means is, like, I'm running Ubuntu 2004, but using nixpkgs, I've got access to all the latest software without cluttering up my home system, without, you know, installing, you know, loads of PPAs or anything like that. And it just basically means I can switch to my backup machine and just pull down the latest Dotfiles, run a command, and install all the applications. So both machines are going to be completely synced up, just using a text file. And again, this is the basic one that they sort of started with, and then they sort of moved on saying, you know, you can expose particular parts of an application to the operating system, like share and bin, and here's stuff about sort of GNU stuff, I think it was. So I'm just looking behind the mic, and this is the path to link, and it's saying, you know, like share docs, share, and the bin directory, which is obviously, you know, the bin directory where everything's installed. But as I said, what I found out is you need to also add the share applications and share icons, so that the icons for GUI apps will actually show up. Now it's going to yeah, this is the full one that we're actually using here. You can see here export man path and path, all this stuff down here. Now it's going to suggest adding this to your shell config, but you don't want to do that. It works without that, and what it does is basically it sort of like overrides part of your path. And I found out like a lot of the stuff in my bin directory didn't work because this was overriding it. So you can just ignore this section here. This is the bit that's the interesting bit. And again, if I switch back to my config here, package overrides, at the bottom, these were the important bits where we added share applications and share icons, and then applications and icons down here. And that's basically what gets the icons working for GUI applications. So like, as I said, meld, this is nixpkgs. Here, this Emacs, this is installed with nixpkgs. Got tint2 up here as nixpkgs. So I've basically ripped out a lot of stuff that I've installed with apt and just replaced it with nixpkgs version. So another thing I want to have a show you is if you come across here, as I said, you've got alacritty. I spelt it properly. Yeah, alacritty. So if you want to install alacritty, it's going to give you this command, but basically all you do is put alacritty in your config file, rebuild it as you know, as I've shown you, and it's going to install alacritty. Another really interesting thing that's come up is DOAS. Now, unfortunately, you can install this, but what it does is it gives you this error. SUID must be 0, and it's basically an issue with they can't sort of add sort of binaries to the store that have got, you know, that UID or something. And I did come across something, I think it was options. Hang on, if I come across to security. Got wrappers, I think it is. Yeah. So what we've got here is this this little bit under options, security wrappers, unstable. It's got this like block of code here. DOAS set UID true equals true, owner root source, and I'm not sure if we can put that in our config nixpkgs config.nix file to actually get DOAS working. So that's one thing I need to do, is actually see if I can get DOAS working with this. Now there have been a couple of programs I've come across that didn't work. Some of them are a bit obscure, but like Task Spooler didn't seem to queue things up. Task Spooler is an application I covered in a previous video. And also MPV seemed to give me problems. Got MPV here, and I had sort of it's sort of just throwing errors in the terminal, and that may be something extra that you need to do to configure hardware support or something. So there are some things that I've come across that have given me issues. Only one or two. I mean, I've pretty much replaced all my command line utilities with nixpkgs. So that's one thing that sort of gave me an issue. But there's literally, as you see, 80,000 packages that you can install. So there's lots of stuff that's not in your repository. Again, we've got stuff like ytdlp, ytdlp, ytfcf, ytfcf. Both of those are not available in the regular Ubuntu repositories. So typically you have to manually download them and keep them updated by running, YouTube ytdlp-u to update it, capital U. It's a pain to manually manage it. So actually using nixpkgs allows you to install things that are on GitHub but not in your repository, and basically allows you to update them. If there's a problem with one of them, you can just roll back to the previous version, no problem. So it's good for for that. It's got loads of other stuff, as I said, like alacritty, DOAS, other stuff. Of course, you've got things like Firefox. Here, Firefox 95, which is the current version. So you can install Firefox. You can install Chromium. I can spell it. Chromium. Got Chromium. You've got stuff like ungoogled Chromium. So basically, you can install a browser using this. It's also actually got, well, I think, and I haven't looked at it. Have done it? nyxt. Yeah. What's here? Homepage. This is this sort of like browser. I think DT covered it on DistroTube. It's basically a browser sort of inspired by Emacs that's sort of uses buffers like this. You can see here you can search for stuff and switch to buffers, and it's basically all command, sort of very much like Emacs as a browser basically. I haven't looked at this. You can't install extensions, but it's got its own built-in ad blocker. But it's a sort of bit of a sort of hacker's browser, so you can install this if you want using nixpkgs. So basically, there's loads of stuff that you can't install normally for your package manager that nixpkgs allows you to install. And again, it's super simple. One way is, you can do it like this. You have to make sure you're on here. You can do it like that. But as I said, the better way is the way we're doing it with the config file. You just basically put nyxt in your config file, rerun it, and it's going to install it. And again, the great thing about this is sometimes you might not want to try software out because it's just going to add loads of stuff to operating. You come up with a load of Python libraries it wants to install or something. So it kind of puts you off. You can, of course, apt auto remove stuff, but it just feels like you don't want to try stuff out because you're kind of polluting your system with a load of stuff. So this just installs everything cleanly in a directory. Cleanly, remove it, and it removes the symlink, and it's gone. Not polluting your system at all. So it's an easy way to try out software without sort of putting loads of stuff in your operating system. So this is the package search, and I'll put a link to all this, and this is the actual notes that I've been going through on all this stuff here. So I'll put links to that as well. Basically, this is my config file. So this is my Dotfiles. So what we've got here is, it said we've got all the Dotfiles. We've got config. If I come down here, nixpkgs. So basically, this is my config file to install all these applications, and I can just pull this down on another machine. And basically, what I do is I just pull this repository down, and then in my Dotfiles, I just run Control-C, Control-V-T. It will tangle the Dotfiles, and what that basically means is this file here controls all these files here. It will write them out to this directory, my Dotfiles directory, but also my home directory at the same time. So that basically means I just pull everything down, run a single command to write out all the latest versions of the Dotfiles, and then I can just run a single command in the terminal to install the latest files from nixpkgs. So basically, I have a single config file here that now manages all my Dotfiles and all my applications in one file, which is brilliant. So it just makes it so simple to actually share stuff. Of course, you don't have to use Emacs and org babble and tramp and all, you know, tangling and all this kind of stuff. You can just do this manually with your Dotfiles. So, you know, you can just have your Dotfiles, have your nixpkgs config file, put all your stuff in it, pull it down on a new machine, run a single command, and it's just going to install everything. And, you know, it's just really, really brilliant. It really changes the way you use stuff on Linux. It allows you just to have a base operating system with the kernel and everything, so that basically, you know, you can just have a new machine, install Ubuntu, pull down your Dotfiles, then just basically install everything from nixpkgs, and you've got a stable system, but with the latest software. So it's really, really convenient. And again, I've got, you know, bit grep, you know, I've got that installed, whatever, go through all the applications I've got installed. Yeah, so I've got bat, so bat, big nix, and see, you can see how this is much, much nicer than cat. We've got line numbers, we've got a file up here, got lovely syntax highlighting. That's really, really nice. So BAT is a program that's well worth looking at. Got FZF installed, got GIMP, Handbrake. That's nixpkgs. Let's go through some of the graphical ones. Got Meld, GIMP, and you know, this launches super fast. Done. Look how quick that is. GIMP normally takes ages. That's super fast. Ms Magic, you know, command line stuff. Got MPD for music, MUT, NNN. Got Newsboat, Pandot, RitGrep, you know, TIG, Tint2, Tmux. So Tmux, is it dash capital? No. 3.2.3.2a. The version, I think it's 3.0a. So it's got a bit of residual config I need to get rid of. But you can see the version Tmux that I can use is much later, and it's got really cool feature in the latest version of Tmux. We can actually have a floating window, which got recovered in one of his videos. Well, I think of it. I haven't replaced Firefox or Chromium as yet. I haven't gone that far. Yeah, there's one where we did a thing about a floating. Yeah, this one here, Tmux pop-up. Basically, you can have a sort of pop-up window come up in Tmux, which is really nice. So check that out if you want to. But basically, using nixpkgs allows me to, you know, basically get the latest versions of Tmux or WeChat or MUT or whatever. So I'm going to put links to all this, all the manuals. Again, this is supported on Linux and Mac. So any version of Linux, you can use this. You know, Debian or Ubuntu. I don't know, you might want to use this on Arch because, you know, why not? Or whatever, or Mac. You got the instructions here on the nixpkgs manual. This is how you search for packages, and remember, when you come to the packages, select the unstable tab, and when you come across stuff, by default it will be on that, And again, you can install stuff like this, but then you lose a lot of the benefits of being able to have a single text file where you manage everything. So this was the easy option, okay? Just doing it like this. You install stuff, did it like that, that's the easy option. But then I wanted to, manage it better. There's a thing called Home Manager that works with nixpkgs and nixos that basically allows you to have a text file and specify what you want to install. Nixos Home Manager, do the same sort of thing we're doing, but if I come across here, wait for it to load up a second. Okay, Home Manager using Nix, and basically what this does is does the same thing that we're doing. Okay, it allows you to create a text file and specify what software to install. But what it also allows you to do is manage your Dotfiles, so that you can, in your config file, you can for Home Manager, you can sort of specify how to write out all your Dotfiles and stuff, and it can basically manage your Dotfiles and your software. But what the issue is you're using nixpkgs and then you're using another tool on top of it, and occasionally what that's like is it's like trying to type with chopsticks. You're not interacting directly with nixpkgs, you're using another bit of software on top of that. And the problem is a couple of issues is you then kind of got to learn a whole new thing on top of that. So you've got to learn nixpkgs and then Home Manager, and you're going to just run into issues that are specific to Home Manager, and so it's going to be harder to diagnose. There's also basically a section here saying I can't remember where it was, but that it only doesn't work with version 2.4 and the new profiles of Nix, and the current version of Nix is 2.5.1, I think. So I wouldn't recommend using Home Manager because it's going to be more to learn, and basically we can do the same thing without having to use another program. So instead of using Home Manager to create a config file and basically declare what software we want to install, we don't need to use another thing to do that. Okay, we can manage our .files separately. You could use stow or something. A lot of people use that. I recommend against getting into Home Manager, and I'd just sort of keep it simple. But as I said, I'd avoid just going a really simple route and installing stuff like this, because you'll do that and then you'll kind of come to the conclusion, I really want a config file that I can just specify the stuff I want to install, and basically this will allow you to do it. So I've been going on for a bit, so I'll wrap this up. But basically, this is the config file. It said super easy. Just replace the things in this list with whatever you want to install. And again, if I just come back to package override, so basically when you want to actually install new stuff from the config file, we just run nix-env -i capital A nixpkgs.mypackages, and that's all we got to do. So that's all we got to do. And then if we want to upgrade stuff, we can just do -u, or we can do --try run. So not doing anything. So this is, if I had stuff to update, this is going to basically show me what's basically going to happen. You can also run nix-env list generations. What you can then do is you can actually say, I think it's nix. I think you can then basically say something like nix-env rollback. The other thing I need to actually figure out is I need to get the ZSH completions working for nixenv. So that's another thing. Let me just see if I can quickly get that working. ZSHRC. So typically, see if this will work. I'm not sure if it will. Typically, this is one way to get completions working with ZSH. So nixenv. Also, that shell config. nixenv -- yes, okay, it's only giving me, that's it, it's only giving me a couple of options. There's only a couple of options available. So we've got dry run, rollback. So this will basically, rollback will sort of basically print out what it can be done and give you some options. So that's how we get the completions working for nixpkgs. So we got compdef_gnu_generic nix-env in our ZSH RC file. We had that and then sourced it. Now when I run nixenv -- I'll get the completions. So you can do, I'm not going to get into rollback now, but there are some videos on Nix on YouTube that you might want to have a look at, but I think it was it list generations? So some options weren't auto completing or whatever, but that's how you can show the generation. So basically you can shift back to, you know, whatever, you can go back in time to a previous version of what you've installed and roll back. Absolutely perfect. I mean, you can't do that with apt. Everything's self-contained, so they don't interfere with each other, so you're not going to get any dependency hell. You know, it's probably the best way I've ever seen of sort of managing software on Linux. It doesn't stick everything in your user bin directory, you know, user bin. You can see all this stuff here. There's still got an old YouTube DL link in there for some reason, but like this is just loads and loads and loads of crap. Basically, as a on Unix FreeBSD, user bin is just for the system applications, and everything else goes in user local bin. Whereas on Linux, anything you install just gets dumped in the same directory. So it's all the user stuff and the system stuff is kind of combined in one big dirty mess. So that's an issue with software on Linux, is there's no separation of the user land between the system and the user land. And this solves that problem really, really nicely. So yeah, probably rattled on enough about this. But yeah, the main site, nixos, basically just get started, install Nix, and remember, don't run this command, run the -- no daemon option, as I sort of mentioned in the notes. You know, create all the directories and everything. So just one last time, let's quickly have a quick recap. So the single user install, we created a directory. Just make that a bit bigger. Create the directory, Nix, chownet, replace that with your username, run the script, and then it's going to basically prompt you to run a command that looks like this. You run that in your terminal. You can list the packages that you can install. This is how you would normally do stuff. But we're going to do the more advanced stuff. Then again, the fix for the desktop files is to add this to your ZSHRC file. And then what we do is we create the nixpkgs config file. So we create the nixpkgs directory, then the config file. We then edit the config file and then basically add this code and obviously put in the name of the applications you want. And then you can basically upgrade all the stuff like that. Upgrade Nix. That's how you would normally remove a package you weren't using the text file. This is the ytdlp fix, and this is how you uninstall nixos. And what I'll do is I'll just update the sort of documentation just to basically put in this command below it. So this is the command that we actually run to install everything from the config file. So the other little fix I mentioned was for Rofi for your application launchers. So the issue is the shell and everything knows about the locations of the XDG directories, but because Rofi is not being launched kind of by the shell, it doesn't know where the XDG directories for the desktop files and the icons are. So what we do is we run xdg data directories like this, and then we run Rofi. So we kind of set a variable and then we run Rofi, and once we've done that, it will pick up the config file. So the other thing I want to show you is files that's opening so open image viewer, open with other application, GIMP. Okay, so that's the other important thing is getting the XDG is vital, getting that working, because without that a lot of stuff's going to break. So this is why I went to so much trouble going through this, is so that if you're using a file manager like that, is that you can actually right click on an application and open it with a nixpkgs application. And to do that, it requires the XDG to be set up properly. So that's basically showing that we've got the the file manager here, and we can open these files with GIMP because, as I said, GIMP is showing up with Rofi, so I can launch GIMP like that, or I can right click on any file and open it with one of those applications. So I know it's a lot to kind of go through and process, but this is the reason why we've gone a slightly more advanced route than just doing a basic way, because this now allows us full control over exposing parts of the application, like the man pages, the icons, the application, desktop launchers, and to our system, and so it integrates with the system. So we've got a clean system. We've got a text file we can install stuff from. The one thing I haven't got into is systemd. Is that sometimes some applications will install stuff, will install systemd config files. What I haven't actually worked out is actually getting systemd to pick up those files. If you have a look at man systemd, I think, where is it? There's a section in here basically about where it looks. Yeah, directories, user directories. So here basically it's saying it follows the XDG based directory specification. So it may be possible to change one of the XDG variables so that it basically looks in the Nix profile for the systemd files as well. So that's another thing that I actually need to look at, is how you actually get the nixpkgs system D files to work with the system as well. So that's one thing I need to actually figure out. And also the second thing was actually getting DOAS to work. As we can see here, DOAS. We can install DOAS, but command will, you can check the config file and everything, and it will say it's okay. But you try and use DOAS, you'll get an issue saying cannot set SUID to 0 or something like that. And again, it's if you come across the options, some of these things are actually specific to nixos, so you can have to kind of like ignore these ones. But if I come to security.wrappers, and under this section, this is the section that I came across that might possibly be something you could add to your nixpkgs config file to actually get DOAS to work. So that's another thing that I need to cover, trying to get DOAS to work. But this is the search. This is the search thing. Come to the packages, unstable, and again, there's just loads of stuff in here. Alacritty. You got OBS Studio. You got RetroArch, which I haven't tried yet. One thing that confused me about this actually is there's 3 versions of RetroArch. See version 1.914, 1.914. So there's a RetroArch bare, there's RetroArch, and there's RetroArch full. I'm not quite sure what the difference between these ones. This looks like it's got a lot of cores and stuff. So that's one thing I've got to work out, is which version of these I need to install to get RetroArch working. But as I said, there's only a couple of things that I've come across that haven't worked for me. MPV, which I think requires some additional config somewhere to get hardware support working or something. Task spooler, obscure command that you're probably not using. Apart from that, everything else, no problems at all. Emacs, this is Emacs. That's nixos. So yeah, that's all the software I've got installed. Lots of command line stuff as I went through. But I'd definitely check out BAT. I said I've got several GUI applications installed here, like Emacs, GIMP, Handbrake, Network Manager Applet, Tint2 panel, that sort of thing. And yeah, I haven't had any issues at all with anything. All just work perfectly once I've gone through the setup. All the command line applications are working fine. All the sort of man pages for them, that sort of thing. So it does take a little bit of setup. But yeah, and that was the package overrides, how we create the config file, and it is really worth doing it this way as opposed to just jumping straight in and installing, installing stuff, like this, running this. It's really much better to take a little bit of time and take a step up from the basic kind of way of doing things. Go to a little bit of trouble, and then we've just basically got a text file. We can just install all of this, upgrade it, roll back, and then if we want to if we want to remove it from the system, we do it with a couple of commands. And again, when you want to set it up on another machine, all you've got to do is go through these couple of steps. You can just copy this, copy and paste these, apart from changing the username, obviously. Go through that, whack in your config file, run a command, it's going to install everything. I mean, how much better than that does it get? So I would definitely recommend checking out nixpkgs, because it takes managing your software to a whole nother level. The benefits you got an easy way to install a list of all your applications, do that on another machine. You've got automatic rollback of stuff. All the applications aren't going to interfere with each other. You're going to get no dependency hell because all the dependencies for that particular version are installed in one place. You know, I can't really see any downsides. There may be it's going to use a bit more disk space because it has to keep different versions of stuff, but you've got garbage collection, so you can remove the old versions of things. So yeah, it's I can't think of a better way I've come across on Linux to actually manage the software. And the other advantage is it just means that your system's going to be a lot less bloated. In that when you run sudo apt update, basically you've just got standard Ubuntu install. So you can just or whatever Linux version you want to use, just standard install, and then you just manage all your software with nixpkgs. I mean, there may be a few things that you need to install with apt or something else, but it just means you're not going to have hundreds of Python libraries or Haskell libraries or Perl or whatever. So it just makes it a lot more leaner system. So I'd definitely have a look at this. It's not difficult to set up. There were a few issues that I had to cover. So again, the most important is the desktop files, and also adding prefix like this before your launcher. And the other really important issue to solve was these ones, adding share applications and share icons. And that basically exposes the applications and icons from Nix profile. So again, the Nix profile, see here in the bin, we've just got a load of symlinks that point to different folders in the Nix store. So these all point to Nix store. You can see we've got all these, basically all these things in here. So that's where these symlinks point. And basically, as I said, what happens is when you update something, it's going to update the symlinks. So that's the bin directory. You've got your etc, lib, and then again the share directory, which is applications, the man pages, and importantly the icons. So that's all for now. That's nixpkgs. That's how you do the config, update it, and basically you can read the manual for all the options that you can set. So I'd definitely have a look at this. If you want to get the latest version of software, much better than the homebrew that I covered in a previous video. It's much better than using things like snaps and flatpaks. And again, this is going to work on Linux and Mac as well. So it's really great if you're using Linux and Mac and you want to set up the same environment. You've got two computers, you want to keep them synced up. This is perfect for that. So I'll put links to everything under the video, and that's all for now.